Hello and welcome to the Sitdown with Standups with me, Eric Lusavali. It's by Punchline Comedy Club, and today we have an amazing guest with us. He is a writer, an actor, an activist, a founder of Watubaki Comedy Club in Tanzania, but most importantly, one of the most hilarious people I've ever met, visiting comedian to Nairobi, courtesy of Punchline Comedy Club, Tanzania. Please, it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Deo Gratias. Deo, karibu sana.
Tuko sawa, tuko Nairobi. Asante sana, bro.
Thank you, bro. We've had you here for 2 days. We've done 2 shows, and it's amazing. This podcast is really all about how do comedians do what they do and having all those insights in there. So maybe very briefly, you can tell us when you started, how you started, and why you started.
Okay, so there's a phase where I started kupenda comedy, stand-up comedy, and then there's a space where I started trying, and then there was a space where I got into it, now starting it as a profession.
Okay.
So which one is it?
I would say I think a lot of comedians fell in love with comedy even before they knew what stand-up comedy was.
Yeah.
So for me, the most interesting part is usually when you started trying stand-up comedy, because I always think the first attempt is when it really kicked off. Oh. Because a lot of people think they're funny because their friends are like, uko na jokes. And then they go on stage and then they're like, I'm never coming back here.
Yeah. So for me, stand-up, first of all, sikukutana na stand-up nikiwa mdogo. I didn't grow up with stand-up.
Oh.
The TV programming ambao I grew up on is the usual. Mimi nimezaliwa Ifakara huko Morogoro, so unajua kuna kipindi za TVs zilikuwa like that system ya sijui television. Sio issue. Yani tulikuwa tuna VCR and stuff, but like television programming was your usual ITVs, hata East Africa TV. Mimi sikujua, mimi just grow up on ITV. Now hiyo ni baada ya wao kufunga mtambo ambao unaweza ukaweka sasa antena ili uweze kuangalia, but before that you would need like a dish.
Okay.
And my father said, tungeza tukanunua, lakini sasa ninawasomesha. So we didn't have that. So anyway, the programming of a typical kid were countryside ya Tanzania, so stand-up is not something that was on TV. Stand-up comedy mimi nimekutana nayo baada ya kuenda high school. After I was in high school, and then I went over a friend's house. He grew up in Dar es Salaam. And then he showed me. I was already a funny kid in secondary school, but it's sketches, acting and stuff. And we imitated and emulated the Masanjas, the original comedies, the Masakus and stuff. That we were aware.
You were already doing,
yes, I was already doing that. But stand-up as stand-up, that ni badai. So when I met when I'm at this friend's house, he shows me there's this comedy thingy. Okay, so I'm watching this video at Russell Peters.
Oh
yes, it was a show of Russell Peters' show, and then I'm watching this video and I'm sitting there waiting for him to start, because me, I'm thinking this is a form of acting ambayo iko tofauti kidogo. And the dude is just there telling jokes. I'm laughing. I'm like, okay, so this is how the format is. Oh, so it's like this. Asa kipindi hicho sasa niko high school, ukumbuke sasa nimeshapita olevo sasa, this when you go through puberty and stuff, and you the girls and stuff. And mimi, I was a comedian, lakini kwa najulikana kama Kingwendu. Now, was funny, yes, but ilikuwa mademu hawaelewi sana hiyo kitu.
Okay, what does Kingwendu mean? Because I think most
Kingwendu is like he's a comedian. He's a comedian. He's an alikuwa hata he's one of those comics wa Tanzania.
I know who you're talking about, because he was on East Africa TV.
Yes,
that dude. Hilarious dude, yeah.
Yes. So that's what I grew up in. That's what I grew up emulating and stuff. Hadi secondary school. Sasa mtoto pale dem kaja na sketi yake ama Linda Boxy, she's got her tomato shirt on. She's beautiful now. You cannot
do Kingwendu.
You can't do Kingwendu.
Kingwendu is hilarious, but he's not sexy.
He's not sexy, exactly. Now you get to school, you realize. You get to high to like secondary school, you realize now. You can be famous. you can be funny, but that does not necessarily translate into sexy.
Yeah.
So you mean I might be dry? Comedy, really? So when I got to high, so when this guy introduced me to stand up, for the first instinct was, here's something that I could be funny on, and it looks like I could also be sexy. So that's me. And then I went to school after that, when that was it was a likizo, it was a holiday, so we went back to school, and then there was this graduation thing, and I did my first stand-up comedy thing, but without really knowing, because it was also weird, because it was a duo with a friend, and I stole one of the jokes from Russell Peters. People thought I was so funny. I stole a dancing joke.
Oh,
yes, the white people couldn't dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had other materials about the school and stuff, and then it was funny thing though. I realized that now that I was always sort of doing stand-up without knowing
you're doing
because kulikuwaga na zile instances where shule umeme unakatika. It's like power
outage, yeah.
Yes, and then there was at a point kulikuwa kunaga generator nikokuwa nasoma mimi. So then if power goes off, we don't go to prep. Woo! For Pandai secondary school, prep ulikuwa ni kila siku. Jumatatu mpaka Jumapili. So when it happens that there's no electricity,
as a holiday.
It's a holiday. Now in that mini holiday, I would have like 30, 40 people around me. And I am doing this skits.
You're just telling stories and
yes,
shit. Yeah.
There's this one bit I used to do. Now I call it a bit. But there was this imaginary thing at the time. It was a match. It was a football match between, I think it was the school staff, walimu na wafanyakazi.
So it's support staff and the faculty and students
versus students. So I would have in their characters, and then I would act out the voices, you know. So goalkeeper ni mwalimu fulani, second this you defense is teacher this and this.
Maybe the cook is
yes, and then I would have cheerleaders outside, you know, who are also teachers, and you would also act voices. So people loved that, and then you know, I was writing off of the same the same way we knew the teachers go. So it was funny, but I did not know that was anything close to stand up until I started doing stand-up.
Here's something very interesting. And this is going to shock a lot of viewers, is that stand-up comedy takes a level of intelligence that most people do not, let's say, give credit to. So for instance, you are a trained lawyer.
Yeah, oh yes.
You trained as a lawyer, and you even went to Italy to study to be a lawyer.
Yes.
And so it's amazing that you full-time are a stand-up comedian. How do those two worlds collide? How does that...
Yeah, and this is some stuff. Yeah, there's a collision there, and I'm learning about it every day. So, my father is a medical doctor.
Yeah.
My mother works as a bureaucrat in the government, but she did something on fishery, so she's in that, but she's working for the government. So for them, the typical life they thought for me would be, you know, the usual.
You go to
school, you did this and this. But early on, they learned that maybe that would not pan out because of my performances in mathematics and stuff. So that I was poor in math. I was so poor. Not that the way it was presented to me, it wasn't interesting. So from Palace School, I was a funny kid. You know, I was the one in the drama classes and everything. So they already knew that there's something in this guy that is not like, he's, ngoja tutaona ude huko shule. Yeah, tunampeleka sawa lakini. So they kind of saw it coming, but they didn't see it coming. So I did that. And then my father, when I was filling out my college thingy to go, I wanted to write mass communication and stuff. My father was sitting next to me and he told me, haya mambo Deo, yatakusaidia nini? Watu gani? It's like, who do you know that has started mass comm and stuff?
And has made it in life. Yeah.
Like, so he was like, pick law. Okay, law. Okay, I was already thinking, okay. So I called a friend. If it's a law, how should I arrange the university? So I went first University Law, University of Dar es Salaam, then I went Mzumbe Law, and then I went St. Augustine Law, and then I went Ruku Law, and then there were 3 more options there, which one was sociology, I think, and you must put education at the end.
Yeah.
It was Gosechuo. But anyway, funny for me and lucky for me, I went to law. Sasa, I went down to law thinking it's going to be this boring thing for me. But anyway, let me see. I went there almost to challenge law, you know. And then when I got there, what I fell in love is, I found out that there's this thing here, philosophy and me.
Yeah.
So the law ikaingia hapo kwenye philosophy, and this is where I met my I would say my mentor. She is a very sweet lady. She's also a lawyer. Her name is Anna Lewis. She's from UK, but also originally also from kaunganisha Portuguese. And she's there. Anyway, she taught me jurisprudence, the philosophy of law and stuff. Yeah. So law was interesting to me in that sense. So I was ikaja kwenye mambo ya logic, argumentation. I was good in moot courts. So you understand, as an actor, as a comedian, law is almost
you gravitate towards it.
Hey, so law is almost like ukisimama pale, you're presenting and people are liking it. So there's that aspect of performance in law. So for me, that one, by the way, there was this moot court tulishirikiwa Kenya ndo wakatutoa.
Kenyans, that's so new. But also, for everyone listening and watching, jurisprudence was used in this podcast. So, thanks. Mukai mkijua pia sisi tumesoma. Now, the funny thing is, you're Tanzanian. You're here courtesy of Punchline Comedy Club, Tanzania. They're the people we have a pipeline connection to. But you also own your own comedy club called Watubaki Comedy. And the question is, how would you describe the scene in Tanzania? How would you describe the stand-up comedy scene in Tanzania? Given that, number one, it's a nation whose, correct me if I'm wrong, the national language is Kiswahili.
Yes.
So a huge population basically speaks Kiswahili.
Yes.
And that means that a lot of the performances that Watubaki does are either in Kiswahili or a mix of a bit of English, but mostly Kiswahili.
Yes.
How would you describe the scene from that perspective, but also in general?
Okay, so that's a nice question, and this is where it comes in. Sasa, the way you would understand, the best way to understand the scene there is with a little bit of history. So and demographics, Pierre. Yeah. So you see how I said I never met stand-up when I was young?
Yeah. That's
because first of all, I'm a country kid, and then the programming and now. You know that kind of contrive. Lakini pia there's this group, there's also a population demographic pale of Tanzania which is more exposed into like Western culture and so for them they grew up Def Jam and stuff. I did not see that. So there was that group of people ambao they knew stand-up existed and it was a thing, but they just knew that Tanzania
there's no stand-up.
There's no stand-up. Then your group wengine ni kama Evans Bukuku, because Evans Bukuku was originally born in Tanzania lakini amekulia UK.
Yes.
So you understand now. Now, this other group that did not grow up with stand-up programming on the TV, the first time they had, for most of the people, the first time they had an engagement with that is through Churchill Show.
Churchill Show in Kenyan Churchill Show.
Kenyan Churchill Show. So people were like, oh, there's this thing. It's new. Yes. But again, you know, around that time, there was also the Trevor Noah story in a way. So ukiongelea hii kama Kenya ni Churchill and huku ni Trevor. Yeah. So now, the route that Bukuku and the rest took is more of the stand-up. It's more of this bar.
Yes, so it's a demographic that's like, you understand what stand-up comedy is, and then, so we're going to spread that gospel to you.
Yes, and then they took the path, comedy clubs in the sense of a bar.
Yeah.
Sawa.
Yes.
For us, wengine, kuna watu hata hawajui if you can have a comedy club like that. Yeah. They know comedy shows as comedy shows. Kwa sababu watu wakiangalia, they're watching specials.
Yes.
And specials are
not at clubs, like mostly. They're not at clubs,
All right, so that group was already doing it, working on Evidence, which was Vuvuzela. So my generation is from that inspiration, Churchill. So it was like, okay, we started creating, but in the view of directly kabisa, this is stuff for TV. Whether it's YouTube or like it's content. So hence we are cleaner and stuff. And then there's always that beautiful rivalry between Kenya and Tanzania.
Yeah.
So coming up, you would be compared, kwa mfano kama mimi, I would be like, which was beautiful in the sense of we have stand-up comedy. They would say, kama Churchill.
Mm-hmm.
We would say yes. But the next thing is, we're like, nyinyi mtaweza kufanya kama hivyo. I mean, like, wait. I think there's another way of looking at stand-up that you have no idea. Let's show you that. No. So hence the writing kidogo different. We didn't go for something that would gusa tu pale, our vernacular in a way. South Africa says vernacular. Crowd. No, we tried to go for something that would cut across.
Yeah.
So na hiyo ilibidi we did that also because there is that mnaiga wa Kenya. So we had to look
to
very
distinct, to be very distinct,
which was beautiful for us.
My question here then comes as I've performed in Tanzania. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, the very first time I performed in Tanzania, I literally came with the material I always perform. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Evans told me was, you're hilarious, but you also need to understand that our society is a bit more conservative than the Kenyan society. Mm-hmm. So every time I'd say something about my wife in my set, I'd see people in the crowd go, like, just hold up a bit. What does that do to you? Because one of the differences we've noticed once we started this exchange with Dar es Salaam and Tanzania in general was that Tanzanian comedians are hilarious and clean. It's material that is not. So for us here, the thing is, and this is a big trap that a lot of younger comedians fall in, is that because we can talk about everything, there is that default setting of shock value where we talk about sex a lot. We criticize the government. We make fun of our leaders. Nothing is off limits. However, when I see Tanzanians, the first time I saw you on stage, you were making a joke about how when you're trying to get a girl to come over to your house, I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. And it's like, oh, lazima mwanzo nipige deki, nioshe vyombo. Yes, that's the bit. That's the very first time I saw you on stage.
Okay.
And I was like, this is not dirty. This is innuendo. It is implying, it's like, okay, I do want to come, because we're not coming over to play Scrabble. Of course, you're coming over for us to do the thing. But it is still extremely clean, but it's hilarious. Do you feel that the fact that you guys are operating in a society that's more conservative makes you guys better comedians?
Yes, in a way. Very much so. Because if the society is conservative, yenyewe tu yenyewe hivyo. And then when you put on a camera, yani hiyo inaonekana kama unatangaza sasa. You understand? Yes. So also, kutukana, irusiwi, we still have cases.
There's still cases in court.
Like a person anaitwa na baraza la sanaa pale for stuff that in other countries it would be like. So you're forced to really look for technical ways of saying the same stuff. And trying to get the message out there without getting in trouble. So that is the pressure that sort of grew the diamonds that we have right there in comedy and stuff, all that way of looking at it. So it has made us better in the sense that it has made us look for more artistic ways to say to express ourselves.
Yes.
But also but sometimes, there is the limitation, much as it's a blessing that way, the places you would want to go with art, because you then, at some point, for instance, me now, it gets to a point where it's not ha-has again. You're a grown man.
You want context.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people do not know this, but stand-up comedy really is a platform for us to address the issues that are around us. And that means that they may not always be the good things.
Yes.
Sometimes it's the difficult conversations that we need to have. And I admire that a lot, especially with like Tanzanian comedians. I've seen people on stage touch on things in a way that is so clever because, and we're very fortunate to be able to do this here in Kenya, is that for us, we're able to say a lot of things.
Yes.
We are able to say a lot of things. So I'd now throw the question at you, which is, What do you feel, having been here for a couple of days, having done a couple of shows, what do you feel is the biggest difference between the scene in Tanzania and the scene here in Kenya?
Okay. First of all, there's something you said there that I want to...
go ahead.
Now it just hit me like, comedians are those people, that type of people who, if you say, don't do this,
they want to do it.
So it's exactly what's happening here. Do you see what I'm saying? So for us, we've had, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And we're just trying to do it. Yeah. Okay, and the scene, the way it is here, the way I have seen it, or the way I understand it as an outsider, so the biggest scene tulichokipokea sisi as Tanzanians would be the Churchill thing. All right. And then when you get here, you realize like there's a division in a way. There's what stands for stand-up comedy as per television programming as of now, as of mpaka saivi, and what people are and where people are trying to take it. And I've seen that the route ambayo inajaribu kupeleka this into the different direction have taken the path of comedy clubs, which I love, because then it's a bar setting. It's like lakini hii nyingine ya TV imebaki vile vile. And what I am really hoping to see is this bar thing going mainstream. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I can see that. I can see that being here, talking to the guys that I've met and stuff. I can see that it's going to happen, if you ask me, rather very soon. And thank God for the content creators demanding more content and programming and stuff. So and with the internet, of course. So I that's how the way I see the scene, and that's where I wish it to go. And if I may say something that's more useful here with regards to this, I go to a point where I realize that it's not really about the jokes per se, and sometimes not even really about it also has to do with the story of the individual telling that story. I'll give an example that's very current because we're experiencing the same in Tanzania with Mandonga, for instance. So Mandonga in Tanzania, much as kuna infrastructure that is being built with Azam.
Maybe I need to stop here and explain who Mandonga is. Mandonga is a Tanzanian boxer who is basically the Muhammad Ali of boxing when it comes to talking. Just when it comes to talking, like he talks such a big game. But also, I can't trash talk him because he came to Kenya and beat his opponent. So that's just context for the people who don't know who Mandonga is. Please carry on.
So Mandonga is, like you've said, he's not the typical boxer. But he's the dude that has made boxing interesting in the sense that there is a story there that people want to hear and follow. There was this interview I watched of a lady being asked. She went to a boxing match and she said, mimi nimekuja kumwangalia Mandonga. She doesn't know anything else about any other boxer. She's just there to see Mandonga. Now, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? For me, it is a good thing, right? Because then now you have the attention of the nation of turning to that side, where it means the talents that are there, if they can also embrace that,
they get the spotlight.
They also get the spotlight. So I usually say the reason why Dave Chappelle was given $60 million by Netflix, it was not because he could write jokes, but in his own words, talking to Trevor Noah, it's because he's interesting. Look at the structure alichokipitia, when what he said no to, the man he said no, falling off. Ndo ile mtu kazingua wale wamemharibia, and then he goes away and then comes back and then he talks about stuff that people want to hear at that time, and it's not safe to do it at that time. You understand? So then kinachouza ni Dave and the way he has contextualized his life into the art form itself and what he's doing as a person to the American society. Hicho ndo watu wanachotaka kukifata. And then Netflix can say, okay, let's join together and be partners and sell what you're saying to people.
I think one of the things that usually happens whenever we have these conversations, they can, like, comedians can talk for ages.
Yeah.
So we have several questions we've gotten from the comedians around. And what they were asking is, number one, we're going to go through these very quickly. The first one is, how does an idea convert into a joke? Like, how do you see something and you're like, there's something here.
So I read it from somewhere. I don't remember the name, but they say stand-up comedy comes from three places. You either have an opinion about something,
Okay.
or you have an observation about something, or you have unhealed pain, trauma about something.
Yes.
So that's why George Carlin used to say, write about the stuff that make you go crazy, that gets you boiling, you know? So really what you're doing is you're expressing your observations, you're expressing your opinions, you're expressing your pain, but in a funny manner.
In a funny way.
So you have what you have to say first. And then from these three things, this thing I was reading, it put it very well. It said you get premises.
Yes.
For instance, the difference between black people
And white people.
and niggers. that's
I was going white people, but niggas is better. Okay,
yes,
cool.
this is a Chris Rock
Yes,
bit.
this is a Chris Rock bit.
It says, now this is a premise. A premise is not funny in itself, but there is some funny in there. Now that there is some funny in there, that's where a comedian leaves, beating it out and trying to see that then there's some stuff you can't really explain.
Yeah.
So I
but
think
once, like, if you get to those three places, then they should guide you into making, like, jokes.
Yes.
Now, the next question that we have is, and I've said this to a lot of younger comedians, is a lot of younger comedians look at a comedian they really admire, and then they start either writing exactly what this person is doing, or even when you see them, you don't even see them.
Yeah.
So when I see maybe a younger comedian who looks up to you, I see Deo.
Yes.
How do you, as a comedian, stay true to your voice? How do you find your voice? How do you stay true to your voice?
Okay. So yeah, man, I'm definitely guilty of trying to emulate some people, but I can say over time, because I was not just looking at a single person,
You're looking at several.
several. So I think I'm an average of that.
Yeah.
But again, after realizing that it is not the jokes, but rather you then realize, what you have from these comedians are tools and techniques that feel good to you. For example, I would do reverse. I would like to do, let's say, callbacks.
Yeah.
I would do this. I would play with the language like this. So you learn the
mechanics.
You learn the mechanics of making a car. But that does not mean you can make a Ferrari.
Yeah.
You get
You
what I
have
mean?
to make your own car.
Stuff. So then the way I stay true is I don't start with jokes. I start with my personal opinions. And then I would just say, okay, this, I think that. And then I would just start talking to myself. I would laugh. And then before I know it, I've written it. And then this connects to that. I seen that.
So it comes together.
Yes.
The next question that we received was very interesting. And this is from someone who was basically watching you on stage and they were in awe. They were like,
Nice.
What's the one cardinal rule that you have? If there's one rule you're like, as a stand-up comedian, I must stay true to this. What's that rule?
It's changed over time, but now it's more like it's a conversation. It's really a conversation.
I want you to repeat that for the people in the back, because this is something I've said so many times. We have workshops every Monday. Yeah. And over every single, I always say comedy is a conversation. And the conversation happens where you're like, when you're having a conversation, I talk, you listen, you respond, it goes back.
Yes.
A lot of times I've seen, even older comedians or newer comedians, it degenerates into a lecture. Yes. Whereby I'm like, listen to me, this is my truth and whatever. So if it's a conversation, just stretch that out a bit. Okay. What does that mean?
So I stole that from a line from Jordan Peterson that said, when you're in a room, you're not talking to the room, or you're not talking to the group. you're talking to individuals. There's no such thing as a group. You can have individuals with similar taste. You can have individuals with similar ideas, but they're individuals nevertheless. So the trick is to walk into a show and not look at it as a room, right? Look at it as a group of individuals. That's why for me, I would literally talk to people.
Yes.
I would look at a person and say this and then say that, the next thing to that person.
Yeah.
And then that has always helped me. Even if the jokes are bad, even if the jokes don't work, but you still have a conversation going. And Chris Rock said, man, as long as they're listening, you're fine.
The next question I have for you is how do you deal with a difficult crowd? We had a show yesterday, and a lot of the principles that make a comedy room really good were missing. And that is always due to very different reasons.
Yes.
So it can be you, it can be like, there's so many reasons that a crowd can be difficult. And when I say a crowd can be difficult, this is not an onus on the crowd only. It's a difficult night. How do you deal with that? You're on stage. You've sat there, before you go on stage, you've sat there and you've seen comedians go on stage, and it's seasoned comedians. It's not easy, like whatever. I've personally seen this. I have seen Tracy Morgan go into a room in New York and struggle. I saw him struggle. And then after that, Michelle Wolf came on and she did really well. And I have seen like rooms that were very difficult. Going back to yesterday's room was extremely difficult. And I saw some of our best comedians like grind it out. And then someone from Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, who's visiting, goes on stage and fucking murders. So how do you deal in general? Everyone has a bad day at the office. How do you deal with a crowd that is not going your way? Let's not call them a difficult crowd. That's not going your way. How do you deal with that?
So I would say what? There are two answers to that. So the first one is the simple one, which is this: identify with the crowd. So for me, we were talking about this yesterday. So for me, it's like, it's a bad night. We are all having a bad night. Like, the audience is also having a shitty night.
Yeah.
They're having a bad night. It means if you, and I didn't get this for a while. Somebody said the fact that they showed up there, they're rooting for you to.
Yes.
Nobody sets out to have a terrible night.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's going terrible, it's a terrible night for
everyone.
You and a terrible night for them. So looking at it that way, they're not the enemy. They're just in much as in the situation as you. So try to make it a better night. Yeah. Try to make it a better night for them and for you. But again, there's this one thing of just letting go, which is like this. If you let go of how life has to happen, where it has to happen, how it has to happen, what has to happen, and sometimes just say, "Bwana, ndio imeshakuwa." Yani, this is it. This is what I have to work with. I have learned. I could say this. I think I've learned the toughest lessons that have changed me as a comic when I have died than I have when I've had a great night. Show. Because a great show is a great show. You're doing very well. But there's those nights where you go back home
and you question yourself.
What the, should I quit? Kipaji kimefutika ni.
I love what you're saying, and part of what I think we forget as comedians, I always tell comedians before they go on stage, have fun. And the thing I've noticed is when the night is difficult, when you get on that stage, you forget that. Because your effort is towards, I must do well. It's not like I must have fun, I must do well. And some of the advice I usually give to especially comedians who are hosting is, if you're having fun, the audience is going to have fun. If you're tense, the audience feeds off that energy and they're also tense. So I think for me to add on those two very wise words you're adding, my addition to that would be, go up there and do this for you. Go up there and have fun, because I'm not in charge of you having fun, but I can command that for me.
Yes.
So in as much as it's a bad night, if I go up there and I have fun, I've done my duty.
Yeah.
So for me, that has always been one of the things that brings me. I've done some very difficult rooms. There's a room that was around that was extremely difficult. There's one time there was a heckling match between comedians on stage and audience members, and they were like, "Shut the microphones off, put up the music," and you're just like,
never dealt with that.
There's another time I've had a shouting match, a heckling match with a lady who was extremely drunk. And that for me was really good because she kept on giving me material. And at some point, I'm on stage and I'm just killing her. But at some point, I'm like, this is getting mean. I'm becoming mean. I'm like, with every joke that I'm giving, people are laughing, but I'm like. So I think just have fun is what I'd add to that.
Yeah.
We are running out of time, and I want to ask 2 very quick questions. Who or like, because we always say, who's your favorite comedians? But every time you speak to comedians, it's, I like when this person because of this and this and this. So I'd say top 3 favorite comedians. They may not be like top, or they may even just be like, I like Maina Munene. Okay, no one ever said that, but I like Maina Munene as a comedian. Like 3 comedians that you...
First of all, I like the spirit of a comedian. The spirit, because we are the same spirit manifesting in different bodies.
That's true.
But you understand that spirit, it's the same.
It's the same.
So I appreciate that. So me, George Carlin, Dave Chappelle, Richard Pryor, and if I can say Chris Rock, and for some reason Bilba, that crazy dude.
I love that all these people are different in different ways.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it in my list, although that's not a question that I was asked. Favorite comedian, because he's an amazing storyteller, Roy Wood Jr. Roy Wood Jr. is, for me, is the best comedian that's out there. The other comedian that I really look up to is Ali Sadiq. And that's because anyone who is able to do stand-up sitting down owns the room. So those 2, like as of now, come to mind. Like really. And then there's a guy called Shane Torres. I have never seen someone who is so effortlessly funny. He tells the most bizarre. If you're listening and you've not watched this guy on stage or listened to his podcast, Shane Torres, he's doing a tour right now, I think in Europe.
Okay.
Dope. Like it's effortless. Like there's no and that is so enviable. Whereby you see,
I need to watch that guy.
This guy is effortless, and the best thing is I speak to him every now and then. On like we message back and forth.
Okay.
And he is one of the kindest, most supportive, and most responsive people. This guy will I'll send him a message and I'm like, yo man, I'm in a really dark place as a comedian right now. I don't feel my material is funny, or I'm going off. So I try and do this thing where I wean myself off. Okay, I'm not going to do dirty material. I'm not going to swear. I'm not going to curse for this period of time. I'm just going to write clean. And when you're doing it's very difficult. And I spoke to him about it, and he was like, bro, you need to see it through. You're going to bomb. It's going to be difficult. It will be a hot night. Everyone is doing really well, but you are in the pits. But you need to see it through, because if you do, you come out the other side as a better comedian. So Shane Torres, if you're listening, thank you.
But if I might add, I've heard of these things, and I'm just throwing it out there to see if it's true. I've heard there are 3 archetypes, 3 archetypes from a teacher somewhere of a comedian in the sense of a stand-up. So there are those who go out there and they're sort of a lecturer.
Yes.
Preachers of sort of types. This would be your Chris Rocks, because he himself was also inspired by a preacher and stuff. So there's that archetype where you have that. And then there's the storyteller, which is not in the sense of he's a dude. He feels like he comes in the room and it feels like it's you
and me. Yeah, we're
vibing.
Yeah.
And he's even the way he presents, he wouldn't say, ladies and gentlemen, this and this. No, he would,
hi guys.
hi guys.
Yeah.
I think also Dave would fit in there anyway.
Yeah.
And then there is the fool. This guy who he shows up there and you think he's dumb.
Yeah. But
he's really pointing out the dumb in you. But he's really pointing out. So they say that most likely you're more of one of these and then a shade
of others. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
for me, I think I am guilty of that Chris Rock thing.
Yeah.
For me, it's easy. It's my comfort zone. My voice is more comfortable when I am saying a point like tofauti, like maybe the problem with ukiishi Afrika unatakiwa ujue kuna ukweli na uhalisia. And then
I like that you say that, because there's a TV show I write for, and basically the guy is TMI with Ty, and Ty would always say, every time I see a bit, I can tell if it's Eric who wrote it, because it's very factual. There's so much fact, but I think that stems from teaching. So when you're speaking from that particular level, because you're like, I have this knowledge and information that I'm imparting to you.
That's lovely.
I think, Deo, we could talk for ages. You're in Nairobi for a few days right now. We're doing a big show tomorrow. It's beautiful that it's sold out. Everyone's really excited for that particular show.
Sold it out.
Your mama, we're going to be having people like Shiru Mwangi, who's going to be on that show. We're going to be having Maina Munene and Tiger Shera on that show. I'm be hosting, and Deo is going to be doing a show. Besides all of that, what are you interested in doing in Nairobi while you're here? Drugs and hoes does not count, because this is a kids-friendly podcast.
That was the go-to answer.
Yeah, we next visit, Deo. Next visit.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to doing, like, while you're here? Is there anything that you hear about Nairobi or Kenya that you're like, I want to experience that. I want to get robbed. I want to get, I don't know. Yeah, because, Kenya is like, or scammed or conned. I want to board a matatu. Like, what's the one thing that you feel like you'd want to do? Maybe not this trip, but one of those things
now
that you like.
made it nice.
Yeah.
So for this trip, it was like, I just wanted to understand the art here in the sense of, especially this art form. Understand how it's going, feel the vibe, the culture. And you can learn about so much about a culture through the stand-up.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that for me, it was like, that's why I'm here. I'm just, this is this. But I would love to come back, and I would want us to go to that mountain and see who really it belongs to. And check the border.
Bro, that's our mountain. You guys stole it. You see, the problem with Tanzanians, when they're robbing you, they're polite. Like, that's the thing. That's the problem with Tanzanians. They're like, samahani ndugu, sijui waisani yako, blah, blah, blah.
You know what I really want to explore?
Yeah.
Is this. That rivalry, Tanzania and Kenya. There is a story. With these things, you're always so blind about the other side, and you don't know it. So I am looking forward to busting my own bubbles that I heard about Kenya being in Tanzania. Do you understand?
Yeah, I get what you mean.
It's like this, it's like that. So given that we are neighbors that have issues, what I would love to do is, understand where tunadanganyana, where we think the other one is this way, the other one is that, because we really are one. So I would love to understand the similarities and sort of spread that.
I can break one of the myths for you right now.
All right.
Kenyans don't believe Tanzanians can speak English. So right now we know there's a deficit in Tanzania. Like, there's about 4 people who can speak English. So now there's like 3 people.
But aren't you checking in the wrong? You're probably saying that because you're checking only in like the entertainment industry. I don't know.
No, I think it's a myth that.
Lakini ni kweli. There's a issue in this. No, there's a ukweli hapo in this sense. The teaching itself, English. There's this bit we used to do, say Tanzania tunajifunza kuna English na Kiingereza. Kiingereza ni lugha, English ni somo. Na sisi tulichofundishwa ni English. Na English ni Kiingereza kinachofundishwa kwa Kiswahili. Sema wazi. To a point where English medium primary schools and stuff, there was a point ambao walikuwa wanachukua walimu wengi wa Kiingereza kutoka Kenya. Yeah, so there's that also, because Swahili is big there. It's like
very
the
big.
Lingua franca. Ya ile nchi nzima. So I think maybe English for you here is more like that than Swahili.
Than Swahili,
So mnajua, every person knows Swahili there, and it's the lingua franca. So when English comes in, it doesn't have like the same space kwa sababu tayari kuna lugha inatuunganisha wote. So that's where you have the advantage.
Yo, Deo, this has been really fun. It's been really fun having you around. Ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between. We are woke. This has been the podcast that basically gets to sit down with comedians, and then we get to chit chat a bit about the things that we love and the things that we do, and basically we try and keep it very short but very sweet. There's more that we can keep these conversations going. If you're out in Nairobi, we're doing comedy in different places. Catch us. We can always have these conversations. Deo, any parting shots you have for our people, them who are listening and who are watching?
Yo, we're here. We're the storytellers and we're telling the story. We hope you listen. We hope you keep listening, because at the end of the day, it's your own story. Thank you very much, Nairobi. I am so happy to be here and I want to come back again. But I haven't gotten anything, if you know, in the sense of like what Diamond has done to United Nations. I've not heard that. And I won't let you down. I'm a sweet one.
Yeah, you heard it here first. He is a sweet one, ladies. That's an offer to you. We'll see you guys next episode. Thank you very much. I want to thank a few people before we leave. I want to thank our producer, Grace. I want to thank our audio engineer, selector OCS, as always. I also want to thank the people behind the scenes who make this possible. Maina Munene, Marcus Douglas, and Shiru Mwangi. All of these people have made sure that we look good. And last but not least, the guy who's always making us look good and making sure that everything is in place, Mr. Lampard Galava. We appreciate you. Asante sana, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.